While lying in a hospital bed attached to 4 lines, I watched a live news report about a luxury cruise setting sail. The camera panned over cheering passengers, and my heart stopped. There on the screen were my parents, my sister, and my husband, clinking champagne glasses and laughing. Confused, I checked my banking app. A fresh pending charge of $12,500 for a luxury cruise package had just hit my emergency credit card. My hands trembled as I dialed my husband. "Where are you right now?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "At work, babe. It's crazy busy today," he replied calmly over the phone as I watched him take another sip of champagne on live television. I smiled slightly into the empty hospital room. "Enjoy yourself," I whispered, before hanging up and making up my mind to end it all. Their free ride, their financial deceit, and our entire marriage. Follow my story until the end, and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Rachel, and I am 34 years old. For as long as I can remember, I have been the family anchor, the one who works late, manages the bills, and silently cleans up every financial mess left behind by the people who claim to love me. My husband, Mark, was always full of big dreams that ended in empty bank accounts. My sister lived far beyond her means, and my parents treated my hard-earned savings as their personal family vault. Whenever I tried to establish boundaries, I was instantly labeled as cold, selfish, or unsupportive. So when I suddenly collapsed at my office desk from severe exhaustion and a ruptured appendix, requiring emergency surgery, I foolishly thought my family would step up to support me. Instead, Mark visited my hospital room just once, long enough to kiss my forehead and claim that an urgent, mandatory deadline at work would keep him away for the rest of the week. Left entirely alone in the sterile white room, surrounded by the monotonous hum of heart monitors and 4 pumps, I turned on the small wall-mounted television just to drown out the silence. A local broadcast was highlighting the maiden voyage of a brand-new luxury cruise line departing from the nearby harbor. The reporter stood on the sunlit deck, highlighting the high-end suites and fine dining options as joyous passengers waved in the background. That was when the camera zoomed in on a VIP balcony. My breath hitched in my throat. Standing right there, wearing designer sunglasses and raising crystal champagne flutes, were my parents, my sister, and my husband. They were glowing, laughing, and celebrating in the ocean breeze. Stunned, I pulled out my phone and opened my bank's mobile app with shaking fingers. There it was, a fresh, pending transaction of $12,500 for a premium suite cruise package, charged directly to my emergency card. While I was lying alone in a hospital gown recovering from surgery, they were using my money to fund a lavish getaway, and Mark was lying straight to my face. I stared at the television screen for a moment longer, watching Mark laugh at something my sister said. There was no screaming, no sudden flood of tears, and no urge to throw my phone across the room. Instead, a strange, piercing clarity settled over me. The pain from my surgical incisions faded into the background, replaced by a cold, calculating determination. I tapped Mark's contact on my screen and hit dial, keeping my eyes fixed on his glowing image on the wall monitor. On screen, I saw him check his pocket, excuse himself from my family, and step toward the railing to answer. "Hey babe, how are you feeling?" he answered, his voice dripping with easy, casual charm. "Where are you right now?" I asked, keeping my tone perfectly flat and devoid of emotion. "I told you, sweetheart, I'm stuck at work," he replied smoothly, taking a slow sip from his glass as I watched his every move on live television. "This project is a total disaster. The boss has us working straight through the weekend. I hate that I can't be at the hospital with you, but I'm doing this for our future. How's the recovery coming along?" I took a slow, deep breath, letting his lie hang in the air between us. "Enjoy yourself, Mark," I whispered softly. Before he could ask what I meant, I hung up the phone. I immediately opened my banking app and placed an emergency fraud call to my credit card company right from my hospital bed. Within 10 minutes, I reported the $12,500 transaction as an unauthorized card charge, placed an absolute freeze on all our joint accounts, and officially revoked Mark's status as an authorized user on every single one of my credit lines. Next, While still hooked up to the heart monitor, I dialed the office of Sarah Jenkins, a top-tier family law attorney in the city. I explained the situation concisely: the emergency surgery, the unauthorized $12,500 charge, the deceptive cruise, and the history of financial exploitation. Sarah didn't hesitate. She immediately began drafting emergency divorce papers, asset preservation motions, and a court order to freeze our marital estate. They thought I was a helpless victim lying weakly in a hospital room, but by the time I set my phone down on the bedside table, the trap had already been sprung. By the next morning, the anesthesia had fully cleared, but the cold rage inside me only grew stronger. I called my personal bank manager, Arthur, who had handled my business and personal accounts for over 5 years. I requested a complete, line-by-line financial audit of every transaction made across all my accounts over the past month. What Arthur uncovered over the next 2 hours made my stomach churn. This luxury cruise wasn't just a spontaneous, reckless decision. It was the climax of a calculated, multi-week conspiracy. While I was pulling 60-hour workweeks to keep our household afloat, Mark, my sister, and my parents had been systematically bleeding my credit lines dry. They had forged my signature on an application for a high-limit secondary credit card just 3 weeks before my sudden medical emergency. They had purchased formal resort wear, booked private shore excursions, paid for spa packages, and even prepaid thousands of dollars in onboard tipping fees, all charged directly to accounts bearing my name. Even worse, Arthur discovered a pending transfer of $15,000 from my personal savings account into a brand new checking account that Mark had opened in his name alone. He had initiated the transfer the exact night I was rushed into the operating room, clearly assuming I would be too weak, distracted, or sedated to notice before the funds officially cleared. They hadn't just taken advantage of an opportunity. They had actively capitalized on my life-threatening illness to pull off a total financial raid. "Cancel the pending transfer immediately, Arthur," I instructed, my voice firm and unwavering, "and flag every single one of those forged charges as fraudulent." "Consider it done, Rachel," Arthur replied, his tone laced with professional indignation. "I'm sending the full audit trail and signature verification files directly to your legal counsel right now." I spent the rest of the afternoon uploading digital copies of every bank statement, forged application, and recorded video snippet from the television news broadcast into a secured cloud drive created by Sarah. Every time my family had smiled for the camera on that ship, they had been documenting their own undoing. By the time the sun began to set over the city, my attorney had an ironclad digital paper trail proving fraud, forgery, and grand larceny, and Mark still had no idea his dream vacation was about to turn into a nightmare. 2 days into their trip, the trap officially sprung. With the $12,500 cruise transaction officially flagged as fraud and all linked accounts frozen solid, the cruise line's financial system automated a total payment rejection. I was sitting up in my hospital bed, enjoying a quiet lunch, when my phone began buzzing relentlessly on the tray table. It was Mark. I let it ring 3 times before calmly answering on speakerphone. "Rachel, thank God you picked up." Mark's voice was frantic, drowned out by the muffled sounds of ocean wind and background chaos. "Something crazy is happening with the cards." We were at the main dining room, and when I went to cover the bill, the waiter told me the card was declined. Then security showed up and said our room key cards are completely locked out. "They're threatening to confine us to our cabin unless we pay the balance immediately. I'll call the bank right now and fix this." I took a slow sip of water, completely unbothered by his panic. "Why would I fix a card charge for cruise, Mark? I thought you were at work." The line went completely silent for 5 full seconds. "Rachel, what are you talking about?" he stammered, his confidence evaporating into thin air. "I saw you on the news, Mark," I said, my voice dropping into a razor-sharp whisper. "I saw you, my sister, and my parents drinking champagne on the deck while I was recovering from emergency surgery. I saw the $12,500 charge on my card. I saw the forged signature on the new credit line, and I saw the $15,000 transfer you tried to pull from my savings while I was in the operating room." "Rachel, wait. Listen to me. It's not what you think," he pleaded, his voice cracking with desperate hysteria. We were going to surprise you. We plan to bring you on the next one. Please, you can't leave us stranded out here. They're saying if we can't pay, they'll turn us over to maritime authorities at the next port. Enjoy the rest of your trip, Mark, I replied smoothly. Because when that ship docks back home, process servers will be waiting at the gangway with divorce papers and a formal summons for grand larceny. Before he could scream another excuse, I hung up the phone and blocked his number. When the cruise ship finally returned to port, there were no luxury cars waiting to pick them up. Instead, process servers handed Mark, my sister, and my parents formal legal notices right as they stepped off the gangway. Confronted with overwhelming paper trails, forged documents, and video evidence, Mark's legal team quickly realized they had zero defense. During the divorce settlement, Mark was forced to relinquish all claims to our marital home, return every penny stolen from my savings, and take full personal responsibility for the massive debt he racked up on the cruise. My sister and parents tried repeatedly to contact me, sending tearful messages about how family forgives family, but I stood my ground and cut them off completely. Without my financial safety net to support their lavish lifestyles, their true colors were exposed, and they were left to deal with the public embarrassment and financial ruin they brought upon themselves. 6 months have passed since that dark afternoon in the hospital room. My physical health is fully restored, my bank accounts are secure, and my divorce is officially finalized. Walking through my quiet home now, I don't feel anger or sadness anymore, only a profound sense of freedom. I finally learned that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. If you were put in my situation, would you have cut off your entire family, or would you have given them one last chance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.